Have you ever been in a predicament where you played an awesome game and you're having the hardest time trying to explain the gaming mechanics of it all, but you end up confusing the person in the process? That's been my struggle right now with trying to explain how awesome of a time I've had with Pragmata and why it's taken so long for me to get my impressions on this video out. At its core, it's an action shooter chained by real-time puzzle strategy. Oh my god, I finally did it. Why couldn't I think about I spent anyway, moving on. Welcome everyone. You've been working all day and now it's after work. I'm Joe and this is my first impressions of Pragmata. Before we get into it, the footage you'll be seeing is from both my live stream at the Capcom booth during TwitchCon and B-roll I was provided from my time with the game at New York Comic Con. So whenever you see me on the screen, I'm playing the game. When you don't see me on the screen, that's the B-roll. This way you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting a mix of my gameplay and what Capcom has presented so far. So without further ado, let's clock in. Story-wise, we don't know much outside of you portraying the character of Hugh, who seemed to have been in some cryostasis state due to some suit damage. You're patched up by an AI who you give the adopted name of Diana. All we really know is Hugh was separated from his team tasked with finding out why the research facility you're in right now went silent, and you quickly find out it's overrun with rogue AI enemies. How modern day of Capcom. Where this game really shines is in its combat. It feels like there's a lot going on just from looking at the screen, but having them throw you right into battle puts your learning on the fly to the test. I will say for me, that's honestly the best way I learn in real life, so the fact that they do it here to get you used to the control style of using two characters worked really well for me here. Since the robots are all shielded, you start off by using Diana's hacking ability, which is puzzle based. You use the face buttons to navigate around to solve the puzzle. As you progress, you can pick up these nodes that add certain buffs towards the impact of breaking the enemy shield, and I can only assume right now that there will be other variations, but the portion I played only had one of these consumable nodes. Once you've broken down your enemy's barrier, you'll be able to do better damage with Hugh, using a variation of weapons you find throughout the Space Center, or the Research Center, whatever they're calling the I don't know. There's a HUD for 4 weapons, 3 of which I was able to find throughout my time in the demo. Towards the latter half of the demo, I was using a combination of this weapon where I was able to create a shock ball of sorts that did like consistent damage, and then I immediately switched to blasting away with either the pistol or the shotgun. To me, it really feels like that's their way of kind of like trying to chain up combos and find your way of just like what's the fastest way to defeat this enemy, and also have fun with the mixing and matching of weapons that you find throughout the game. I'm unsure how the upgrade system will work here or if there's one at all, since there weren't any stations really indicating upgrades, but when speaking to some of the Capcom folks during TwitchCon, it seems like there would be more to offer in combat as you progress further in the game, which was good to hear. That was actually one of my concerns, because although the combat loop is really fun, I can see it getting old fast if there isn't something else to continue supplementing the combat, whether that be through upgrading or added movesets or just, a combination of different weapons. Traversing around in Pragmata is fairly straightforward. You can walk, run, you can jump, and hover boot around. Sorry, I didn't mean to dig at Metroid. It's my favorite series, by the way. Sorry. Like most action shooters, there is an element of environmental puzzle solving. It's generally based around the tasks, it seems like, is the impression that I'm getting from this. The slice that I played revolved around finding different areas of the research facility to open up the elevator that led me to the boss of the demo. It was here where I got to do some minor platforming and getting used to the hover boots. Just like with the weapons, I wonder if these will get upgradable at some point, because the meter on which these were usable was super limited. Like, it barely left me any room to make it from one end of the platform where I started on to the next one. It was pretty cool to use, but don't bother trying to spend too much time in the air because you'll run out of juice pretty fast. The bright side is it is cooldown based, so there isn't a worry for needing to recharge that. The game also showed signs of rewarding you for going off the beaten path and exploring a bit. I did find a section that had an extra health pack, which are kind of like your Estus flasks for Souls fans. It's not a Souls game, I had to make a reference, and that was the first thing that came to mind. I found it towards the end of the demo that I didn't notice in my first time through. So I'm happy to see that this game, although seemingly linear, has moments to kind of wander off and explore a bit. Now, arriving at the boss battle, you're met with a giant mech that likes to rush at you and throw down a bunch of beams like it's a Final Fantasy XIV raid boss. I used all of my artillery and skills I had learned up until that point to break the weak point on the back, and I got to use Diana's special skill by clicking down L3 and R3 to further slow him down to a crawling pace. And if you wind him down enough, you'll be met with the R2 function where Hugh runs up and does major damage. The animation made me feel so badass. And overall, that was the crux of this first boss battle. You rinse and repeat, and eventually the boss is down, and that was the end of the demo. Right now, I think PRAGMATA is definitely one of these games that I feel like its success is going to be based around word of mouth, or getting this demo into the hands of more people. And this next part is directed towards Capcom. I can't emphasize how much of a believer you'll make people with this new IP if you get this demo out sooner rather than later. Like maybe in the new year, once, you know, all of the marketing for Resident Evil is done and Monster Hunter, since like those are kind of close together, go heavy on PRAGMATA. Like, you have something special here that I think if you got people to actually like play it in their hands, this small vertical slice of this game, right, you'll actually find that more people will enjoy it and understand the controls of how everything is working. It's throwing a lot at you right at the beginning, or at least to me it felt that way, but in a good way. It was like there's a lot going on, so like let's get you used to this now before we start like drip feeding more mechanics into the game as it goes along, or at least that's the impression that I'm getting. I think the perfect example is Maximilian, dude. He had severe doubts about the game. I think at one point, and I don't want to throw words in his mouth, I think his mouth. I don't want to throw words in his mouth, that, you know, I think he had mentioned at one point that he didn't think the game was coming out was real at all. But what I'm trying to say is, if you can make a believer out of him in showcasing the game and saying, oh wow, actually this game is really fun, I think you're onto something there. And this demo does need to make its way before the game drops, so that way you have a chance at letting a new IP breathe into the hands of other Capcom fans and just people of fans of third-person action shooters. Although I still do feel like the combat may be hit or miss with some due to the back and forth of Diana and Hugh. A fun loop that screams, throw more at me once you've got it down. The minimal bits of story we have right now is enough to pull me in, and I definitely want to know more. And the current strings of combat in the demo I played twice now definitely has me wanting more in a good way. But I'm curious to hear from you and everybody who's only seen gameplay through like the lens of another YouTuber, Twitch streamer, just content creator in general, or just like through the Capcom feeds that have been shown off. I want to know what y'all think, and whether this is a game that you feel like you want to know more about, or just want to get it in your hands to actually like understand what's going on. Because yeah, it does seem a little bit like confusing seeing all this HUD stuff popping up with like the puzzle system. How does that work? How you're using the face ones for that, and then going back and switching over to the third person for Hugh for shooting at the enemy afterwards, and like the back and forth mechanics of that. It looks awesome to see on screen, but also like I go back to, do you feel like you need this in your hands to better understand this game? Let me know in the comments down below. And thank you again, Capcom, for providing me with the opportunity both at New York Comic-Con for the demo booth over there, and for allowing me to live stream it at TwitchCon as well. That was insane. Also, shout out to the entire like Capcom social media team. They were like on it on both like at TwitchCon and at New York Comic-Con. A special shout out to Joe and Andy as well. Those are the homies. Like, y'all had the longest 2 weeks back to back, and y'all held it down. So with that said, hype for Joe and Andy in the chat, and in the chat, because I'm not streaming this, in the comments down below. And I do stream on Twitch. Right now, my schedule's a little wonky. We're headed into Thanksgiving right now over here in the States, so schedule's going to be a little bit wonky, excuse me. But if you're into Discord, if you're following me on any of other social medias as well, I generally post when I'm live. I'm usually on around 6:30, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and you can kind of catch me going through a bunch of random madness over there. I play a lot of JRPGs, retro, Nintendo, and survival horror. Obviously, I'm a big Resident Evil head as well, and I will see you all next time. So if you enjoy what you like here, give it a like, share with your friends, hype up the video if you're seeing this within the first week of it being uploaded, and I will see you all next time. Take care, love y'all, and remember, fight for your dreams, and dreams will fight for you. Also, sorry for the background over here. Everything is falling apart back there, and I kind of like I gotta fix it before like I start putting up Christmas decorations. Anyway, take it easy, y'all.